I basically was, welcomed to Uniting as a foster child, and that was the start of my journey with Uniting. Since then, I've gained a lot of support from them throughout that journey, as well as my aftercare journey, and towards basically achieving my goals to be an employee at Uniting. So when I was removed, when I was 12, I was removed at the same time as my 5 younger siblings from my parents' care, and we were split up into 3 different homes. And during that time, probably about 6 months into being in care, my foster mum had offered to take on my 2 youngest sisters. So in the placement that I was in at Yeovil, there was me and my 2 youngest sisters and my little brother. And then I have another 2 sisters that are with a different carer in another town. So I was probably about 16 when I went into Uniting's out-of-home care. Prior to that, I was with FACS. So they transitioned us into Uniting because I'm an Aboriginal person, and at that time they were going through that transition and looking at the child placement principles and all those kind of policies around that. And I was supported a lot through my time in care. I was very fortunate, and that's kind of what drove me to work on the other side, and instead of being the young person in care, being the caseworker that helps other young people for Uniting. So once a young person is at the age of over 16 or above, they can decide when to self-place. And I had decided a week before I turned 18 that I was ready to leave the nest of my foster mum, and I was like, okay, so how can I do this? And first thing that I went through was working on a leaving care plan with my caseworker at Uniting Out-of-Home Care, and then also linking up with the aftercare statewide support worker, Sheena, and she was giving me support around what having a tenancy looks like, what your rights are as a young person, what financial aid you can receive, what counselling support, legal service support, scholarships, all this kind of background support to help me strive going into independent living, because it's one of the scariest things is leaving home, because even though I've had my support there from my foster mum and family, without that kind of support and without the support of the aftercare service, I don't see myself being where I am now. It's kind of been one of those things that has helped me become the person I am and strive to be on the other side and working in the field with community services. And Uniting's aftercare service is actually the only aftercare support service in all of New South Wales. So there's 2 people covering the whole state of young people that need that support. And without that, that's where you see the experiences of them being at risk of homelessness, experiencing homelessness, exposure to drug and alcohol, issues with mental health, and all these other aspects that come into their life because they haven't got the support or the caringness that we all deserve. So I decided that I wanted to work in community services when I was in Year 10. So I would have been about 15, 16 years old, and because of my positive experience with the service that was assisting me at Uniting, I was like, okay, so how can I be a caseworker? How can I be one of you guys? First thought was go to university. And I mapped out this whole big picture of what my future was going to look like. And then I finished Year 12 and I actually still haven't been to university. So I am 3 years out of school now, and I ended up staying in Dubbo so I could be close to my support network, because Dubbo is a community that I can now call home, and I've never had that before. And so eventually I decided to go to TAFE and do my diploma in community services, which I flew through because I was so in love with it So I finished that at distinction level, and the first thing I did was rocked up and went, hey guys, what can I do? So I filled out my job application and provided my resume for a caseworker job at Out of Home Care. Now when I went to the interview, because I've got my personal experience, but I was still developing upon my own skills within case working, and it's a job that requires a lot of understanding and knowledge. They were like, well, why don't you start at being as a support worker for Out of Home Care? So I was doing that for about 6 months, not even 6 months, before I was actually offered a full-time caseworker position at Doorways to work with young people that are at risk or currently experiencing homelessness. I've now completed a lot more training around the caseworking field. I've done a diploma in Aboriginal Studies for community and professional practice, which I graduate on Thursday, which is tomorrow. So, and then I will eventually look in doing my Bachelor of Social Work and Honours in Social Work. But at the moment I'm so field-based and client-based that I can't draw myself away from committing to the work that I'm doing full-time. I unfortunately didn't have much exposure to my culture during my time in Out of Home Care. It wasn't something that I had readily available to me because my parents didn't know much, my biological parents didn't know much either. So I ended up linking up with the Aftercare statewide support service with Uniting and did some more of my family tree history searching with them, which took me down to Canberra to AATSIS, which is the Australian Institute for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Studies. And that was basically an opportunity that the Aftercare service had provided to me to research more into my Aboriginality and my family. And so with that adventure down to Canberra, I was able to actually I found out my great-grandmother, my great-great-grandmother, my great-great-great-great-grandmother. Let's go back to 5 great-grandmothers back just on that little journey that Uniting had provided me. And that's one of those things that I hold true to myself every day now. I'm constantly learning. I'm learning about my community. I'm learning about myself. But with that in mind, that's actually one of those bigger things that actually impact positively on the work that I do with young people, and the importance that culture is to a young person experiencing disadvantage and that sense of identity. If they don't get that opportunity to learn and experience and value their own culture and their own self-identity, then there's always going to be something missing. And so at the end of the day, I went, okay, what else can I do to not only improve my self-identity, but to give those opportunities to other young people. After I finished school, I was working up at Apollo House, which is a community centre in the area of Dubbo that they call the Bronx. And you see a lot of young people come through the doors that are experiencing a lot of disadvantage, lack of opportunities. And so one of my roles there was as a dance instructor. And I would go there once a week or once every 2 weeks and teach hip hop and contemporary classes to show them that these are skills that you can pursue as a life option, as a career as well. Because now I am instructing and running my own dance studio out of the PCYC here in Dubbo. So within my work, I feel that everyone deserves to be treated as a unique person. Everyone's needs and wants are always going to be different, and they're always going to change. But that's not something that's going to stop us from working with them, because at the end of the day, we want to see them grow and develop and be empowered to become very independent and resilient for themselves. That is why we don't go out and make those judgments, because we know that everyone is walking on their own path. They're taking smaller or bigger steps. Sometimes we'll take steps back, but that's okay, because tomorrow you might take 2 steps forward. So it's just having that in mind, that every day is different, and every day brings a new journey, every day brings a new person, and every day brings a new light into someone's life.